All right, today is Monday, October 9th, 2023. I'm in New York City, and you're listening to Ali-M.O.N.Y, ALI-M.O.N.Y, Ali, Mayor of New York. What if somehow I either ran for mayor or was mayor? These are some of my thoughts and some of my musings. Although today is a holiday. It's a federal holiday, Indigenous Persons Day, or otherwise known as Columbus Day. Who knows what it'll be in 100 years. I'm all for holidays, but I don't think people realize how holidays affect small business. Every time there's a holiday, it really sets us back. Now, I don't know what the balance is, because we're still going to pay rent today. We're still going to pay our insurance today. We're still going to pay for our data, our phone services. There are a lot of fixed costs for us that don't change. And it seems like in my lifetime there have been a lot of added holidays to the mix. It seemed to be there used to be Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Day, and then some others have been added now. I'm all for holidays. I'm all for people having time off. I just think you have to take into account small business. You really have to look at the world and really cities through the eyes of, to some degree, the least of us, meaning puppies and dogs walking the streets, toddlers and children walking the streets, small businesses who make their living off of day-to-day operations, day-to-day sales, and need every single day in a month to be able to make ends meet. Right now, as I speak, it seems as though the world is at war. The Middle East is in a full-blown declared war between two nations that share borders and have land in close proximity. There was already a war going on in Ukraine when Russia invaded. That war has been going on for a year now. And that war has depleted a lot of resources, and American resources as well, because America is helping to fund this war. It's so very complicated. I think foreign policy is all about, if we don't pay now, we will pay later. If we don't stop this situation now, it's going to be a bigger monster later that we won't have the ability to stop. The case was true with Hitler's Nazi war machine. If that hadn't been stopped, yes, we would be living in a very different war. I don't quite know what would have happened if Vietnam hadn't occurred, or the Korean War hadn't occurred, or the Iraq War hadn't occurred. So I don't know. But today, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about, because right now there are certain things that are more pressing issues than others. Global warming is always an issue. And global warming is not just meaning the heating up of the world, but also weather events. Like, for instance, New York City has been hit with a lot of rain and water weather events. There's also fires that lead to fog and haze. There is the heat that heats up the planet certain times of the year to unbearable levels. There's drought. So, again, I will discuss things that the mayor of New York might have some ability to facilitate change, but the mayor of New York, in many ways, should be the mayor of the world, because New York City is the capital of the world. It's the center of the world, in my opinion. Again, I live here. And some people may think, well, I believe where I live is the center of the world. But people come from all over the world to live in New York City. I believe every country is represented here. And we've come here, hopefully, to live in peace and harmony. Most of us, as I've said, 20% of the people cause 80% of the problems. It'd be great to get it down to 10% of the people causing 90% of the problems, and reducing the number of people causing problems or challenges. But ideally, the goal is we've come here to these 5 boroughs because we wanted a better life. or a city life, or from people who've come from around the world because they couldn't get the freedom of speech they wanted, the rule of law they wanted, the safety they wanted in the countries they were in. And right now, the migrant crisis has people coming from all over the world at a rate, I think it's 700 a day now as they're being bussed in. Now, the mayor of New York has gone down to the southern border to the countries they're coming from, the 4 predominant countries they're coming from, I believe, Mexico, Venezuela, Ecuador, Guatemala, to talk to people, to say, don't come here, please. We don't have the resources. Now, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to him. I assume when he spoke with an interpreter. But I think if people are coming, they've talked to someone here who's telling them, hey, whatever they tell you, it's better here than it is there. There's at least a chance here to have a roof over your head. There's at least a chance here to maybe get a job, to put your kid in a school, a public school. And most of us, I think we do, if you have children, everything you can for your children. And if you can make a journey, precarious as it may be, perilous as it may be, to get your child somewhere where they have a chance at a better education, a better life, and everything comes down to the lesser of two evils. I think the mayor of New York would make a fine presidential candidate. And I don't want to be the mayor of New York. I don't even necessarily want to be in politics. I'm 55 this October. I've enjoyed my life and enjoy my life in the small comedy theater world and running the bar that we have. I enjoy teaching improvisation, sketch comedy, solo performance, stand-up. I like the world of comedy. I like the people that are drawn to it. And right now I'm not trying to be funny, because why? What's the point of trying to be funny? There's plenty of things that are surreal and absurd. But this is about, what do we do to make this a better city? And the things I wanted to talk about today, aside from the fact that, like I said, everything aside from global warming is a distraction, and now we have 2 kind of major wars going on in the world. I don't know how many wars you need to make it a world war, but we're getting very close to world war levels. And the war that's happening in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine is a very emotional war, where, for whatever reason, people are going to take sides one way or the other. With the war between Russia and Ukraine, most people are on the side of the Ukrainians, because they didn't begin the war. They were invaded. But this war in the Middle East is going to be something that is going to divide people. I think it's similar to the debate with abortion. Right to choose, right to life, however you phrase the words. Because it all comes down to the phrasing of the words. That, I think, is another issue that I don't see us coming to terms with in terms of all agreeing. I think potentially in 50 years or so we will agree that capital punishment is not the way to go. That is not the way to get someone not to kill people, by telling them, we're going to kill you if you kill somebody. I think the state has to, as the parent, eventually say, look, we are going to stop killing people. We don't know if this will get you to stop killing people, but we as the parent, the state, the government, are no longer going to execute other humans for their wrongdoings. We may send you to prison for the rest of your life, and that may be the correct course and punishment for deeds or actions, but we should want to get out of the murdering people business and executing them, because then we don't have a leg to stand on, and we do not have the higher moral ground. As long as a nation executes its citizens for its actions, I don't know how you just tell citizens, stop murdering while you're murdering. Again, I have not had a family member who had something happen to them, so again, I'm speaking from the point of view of someone who hasn't dealt with that. Thank goodness. So it's unimaginable. But my point being is, there are certain things we are not going to see eye to eye on. I think there are certain things we can eventually see eye to eye on. Capital punishment, I believe, is one of them. I think eventually, little by little, in the same way that legalization of marijuana, little by little, we're heading towards. Let's legalize it federally. Let's deal with it. Let's not make this an issue. Let's not put people in prison over this. And eventually you will get to the legalization of most drugs, decriminalization for sure, and probably the legalization of assisted suicide. That will most likely happen. And then the things that will be left will be capital punishment and right to life or right to choose, however you couch it. Complicated issues, very visceral issues, very emotional issues, but I feel the same way about the war that has just begun in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. I think it's going to be very emotional, and I think people are going to choose sides. Already yesterday in New York City, immediately a day after it, there were protests in Times Square where both sides were there protesting. But again, this is a podcast regarding if I were to run for mayor of New York, and how much can a mayor actually do nationally and globally. You might have a larger stage and you may say things and may get picked up by the news media and reported on, and it may become a meme or a thought bubble, a truth bomb, and that truth bomb may go around the world just because you're the mayor of one of the largest cities in the world. But what can you really facilitate? And really also, you don't have the ability just to say, hey, do this, and it gets done. It still has to be voted in by council people. Other politicians have to take your idea and say, okay, we're going to make this something. Even as I speak right now in New York City, on our street, 29th between 6th and 7th, yesterday on a Sunday, somebody walked into our little theater and stole money out of the cash box because somebody was changing in the bathroom. You'll hear the sirens, and that's New York City now. That's another side point. I think the sirens need to be recalibrated. I think they were set at a level at a different time, and no one ever really said, hey, are these too loud? Do we need to know 10 blocks away that they're coming? Can we lower the volume on these so people know? Or is the intention to scare people out of the way? That the siren is so loud that you're just so scared you'll do whatever to get out of the way. But I think that's something to look at, because there's more and more sirens that I hear in New York City that I have in a long time. And so maybe it's time to look at the volume of all the sirens and say, let's get a mid-ground on these. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is tinted windows. I think it's important to make sure that our first responders, especially police officers, are protected in many ways. And one of the ways I think that they need to be protected is they need to be able to walk up to any vehicle and look in the front and the back, and they need to be able to see crystal clear who's in the vehicle. I don't know when this happened. I don't know if tinting windows is even legal. I'm sure it's a great side business because, again, the first rule of capitalism is create consumers. So people who got in the tinted window business, they love the fact that people want to come and get their windows tinted. But it's just not safe for police officers. It's not safe for first responders. To live in this kind of, you get to be in the back seat with anonymity, maybe having a weapon of some kind, maybe you've kidnapped somebody. We can't look in the back of your car? How did this happen? You know, it seemed like there was a point where tinted windows in the 5 boroughs was illegal. I think. If it's not, it should be. No police officer should have to go up to a vehicle and wonder what's in the back seat. I've seen videos of a police officer going up to a vehicle. The back windows were tinted. He went to the side of the vehicle, the passenger side back seat, opened it. Some guy jumped out and just started shooting at him. Now that wouldn't happen if you could see crystal clear through those windows. That, I think, is a very simple fix, where you simply say, and as I've said, I think there needs to be good tickets, and maybe there are some tickets that are bad tickets, but there are also some good tickets. And one of those good tickets, I believe, is no tinted windows. No tinted. Nothing in the front, nothing in the sides, nothing in the back, nothing in the back window. We have to be able to look inside the vehicle and immediately assess who's in it. It's already a challenging enough job to be a police officer. It probably already has a low level of fear going to work every day, not knowing what's going to happen. Knowing that you could get shot, knowing that you might have to shoot somebody, knowing you're going to deal with things that you were probably not trained to deal with, like mental illness or levels of domestic violence that you're not really equipped for. These are really social worker, therapist duties. Now, a lot of people, talked about defunding the police during the recent upheavals. In New York City, not only do I think you shouldn't defund the police, you should fund them even more, but you should define the police, meaning define their role. Define what you want them or need them to do. In an ideal futuristic world, 2 police officers would be traveling, and in the back of the vehicle would be a social worker. And that social worker would be there, and again, they'd probably have to be in body armor. They might have to carry a weapon. Maybe not. Maybe they're just in body armor, and they're there to be brought along as a third party to help with mental illness, domestic violence, alcohol issues. See, if we define the role of the police, then potentially we can say, look, we get it. This is not something you've been trained to do. You haven't been trained to deal with a serious mental episode. So your instinct may be to tase or to shoot, but we have someone here who has been trained to talk to people. Even on the way today to work, I was walking. I saw a man talking into a mirror reflection and arguing with himself. Now, at that point, does that mean you put him away? But there's a level of mental illness there. Now, look, we're also told to look in the mirror ourselves and say positive things. So there's a fine line of looking in the mirror and saying, I love you, or I believe you can do it, or you got this, and pumping ourselves up. And hopefully that self-talk is positive self-talk. It's an affirmation. There's a positivity to it. Sometimes you've got to be your own best friend. You've got to be your own role model. You've got to be the person pumping yourself up to get up and go, take a walk, get out of the house, clean the apartment, clean the medicine cabinet, clean the toilet, take out the garbage. But I guess at some point, who decides? Who decides when mental illness? And we all have some level of mental illness. If we say we don't, then we're lying to ourselves. If you bite your nails, you have some level of mental illness. If you are my alarm was going off. Any number of things can be described as some level of mental illness. And what's mental illness? If you say physical illness, and you say I have a stomach ache, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's physical illness. It's a mild stomach ache. It's uncomfortable. You have it. And so mental illness, there's degrees of it too. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, obtrusive thoughts. I think we have to also be cool with people having whatever thought they have. Whatever first thought you have, we don't know where the thoughts come from. But we don't have to entertain the thoughts. And I think part of being mayor of New York as well is talking to people in a way as not only their communicator, their coach, but also kind of as a therapist for the city. The city needs somebody who is well versed not only in the politics of running a city and how that gets done, because there's a certain skill to being a politician as well, to getting things passed. And now again, I believe we're getting to a place where we're so divided. One person wants to pass something one way, one person wants to pass something the other way. But I think, how can we disagree on tinted windows in the city of New York? And maybe these laws are already on the books. I believe there's a law on the books for honking your horn is $350. I don't think it gets enforced. I believe if it got enforced for 1 month, you would see a dramatic decrease in horn honking. And some would say, why are they wasting their time giving tickets for people honking a horn? They should be doing other stuff. Well, potentially by pulling someone over who's honking a horn, where there's smoke, there may be fire. So that same person honking a horn is crying for help. And by honking the horn, they're allowing you or giving you a right to go, let's just make sure everything is all right. Let's make sure you're cool. And there's nothing, beyond this driving around honking your horn. We know it's a cry for help. That we've all agreed, that everything's an act of love or a cry for help. Because when the car first was created, My understanding is the horn was there in case the brakes failed. There was so much brake failure in vehicles in the beginning that you had to have a way to let people know my brakes don't work, and that's why the horn was created. Now we use it indiscriminately. Light barely turns green, people are on the horn. Someone's not moving in traffic, people get on the horn. But I really think it's probably 10 to 20% of the people. Some people just don't honk horns. They just sit there and they wait. And then there's those who are always honking. And again, you'll hear another siren in the background. I'm not sure if the mic is picking it up, but that's another siren. And today is, again, a federal holiday. Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. And I saw a parade on Fifth Avenue. I was walking from Fifth Avenue and I took the train down here. And it was blocked off for the parade. There's a lot of parades in New York City, and that's okay. Parades on weekends, a little easier. Parades on a Monday, but I guess it's a federal holiday, so most people or some people aren't working. For other businesses, you can't afford to shut down for the whole day. You have to continue doing what you do, and for us, we have to kind of continue what we're doing because we teach classes, we do shows, and we have to go about the business of running a little theater in New York City. And so part of that is you go to work most days. And there's nothing wrong with that if you enjoy what you do. And I don't know if the kids are in school right now, or school is out, but that's also the bigger issue right now is education in schools. How do you make sure the children in schools get a basic education? You know, and I'll go back and there's things in these podcasts that I'll repeat and you might say, I think I heard that in the third one. Okay, but we're right here, right now. You'd have to stop this recording and go back to one of the old ones and say, okay, you see this? He said the same thing again. It's okay. It merits repeating. When I trained in a boxing gym, I would hear the same thing being said over and over again. Keep your left up. Keep your hands up. Move your feet. Why do coaches repeat these things? Because when you're boxing, eventually you'll be by yourself in that ring. And they can yell stuff to you, but it'll be up to you to remember to keep your hands up. Because if you keep dropping your hands, you're going to get knocked out. If you don't move your feet, you're going to trip. So there's a repetitive nature to some aspects of life. And here you go. Here's another siren. And again, even from, I don't know where the siren is coming from, it's too loud. I think you can reduce the volume of this in half, and people who are basically a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks away need to hear it, but do people 7, 8 blocks away need to hear it? Or is the purpose of this siren that's blaring to scare you to get out of the way? Is it there and people know, no, we want it to be this loud. We want to scare you. We want you to get out of the way, and if we don't have it at this volume, you won't. They may even say, you don't even get out of the way now. Even at this volume, you guys are just kind of sitting there while we're trying to get through traffic. There's too much traffic as it is. And as I said, one of the things, the only way to kind of reduce it, you want to do surge pricing. That's going to cause challenges. It's going to affect people's pockets. It's going to make it even more difficult. But odds and evens. Odd license plates, even license plate. In one day, you will have the city traffic cut in half. Or maybe not half, because some people will say, you know what, I'm driving, I'm just going to risk getting a ticket. But then that would become a good ticket. A ticket for someone who's honking their horn is a good ticket. A ticket for someone riding their bicycle or scooter or electric bike on the sidewalk is a good ticket. In fact, I think those vehicles need to be confiscated. That would end immediately if you not only got a ticket, but your vehicle was confiscated, your bicycle, your electric bike, your scooter, your motorcycle. It was confiscated, taken to an area, and then you'd have to pick it up. Immediately, you would see people, they wouldn't get on the sidewalk with their bicycles anymore. Or if you're going the wrong way. If those tickets started getting given, the word would get out. I mean, we live in such a... Chicago used to be called the Windy City, and people thought it was called the Windy City because of the level of wind, which really I think Chicago is the 13th windiest city in the nation. But they called it the Windy City because of the way gossip traveled through Chicago, and that's why they called it the Windy City. So if you enacted something where if people were all of a sudden being given tickets for speeding. The people who speed, the word's going to get out. If you tell people, look, if you ride your bicycle on the sidewalk, you're going to get a ticket and the bike will be confiscated, immediately everyone would be texting and calling each other saying, hey, watch out. They actually did it. They took my bicycle. I was riding on the sidewalk, going the wrong way too fast, and they set up I don't know what you call it. They set up I don't want to say a sting because it's just setting up police officers in areas to go, yep, we saw you on the bike. Here's the picture. Here's the speed you were going. We're going to give you a ticket. Where's your license? And again, everybody riding any kind of vehicle needs to have a license. And if the vehicle's motorized in any way, you need to be having it registered. You need to have a license for that motorized vehicle, and you need to have it registered. Just like if you have a car, you can't drive a car without a license. You can't drive a car without insurance. Although I hesitate to bring the insurance companies into it because then all of a sudden now you have to have insurance to deliver food, but maybe you have to have some level of insurance if you're going to ride a bicycle or a vehicle around the city. And maybe, the suits go after the Grubhub and the Uber Eats. And if you do something, they hold the food delivery companies responsible first, then you. That's the only way it would really stop it. If somebody gets hurt because somebody's delivering Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash, then the first lawsuit goes to Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub, then to the person riding it. But the person riding the vehicle needs to have a registered license in that city or state. And I think, God, I hate to bring in insurance companies because then it's going to creep up. And I know how much insurance creeps up. For us, it's fully doubled. But how do you make sure the person just walking to work who gets hit by somebody on a bicycle doesn't have their life destroyed? But as I was saying about the education, it's going to take going into the classrooms, and it's going to take, look, let's just make sure every child can read out loud, write short, powerful sentences that lead to paragraphs, decent vocabulary, and public speaking, times tables. I mean, you should be able to go through 0 through 12 and say 8 times 8 is 64. You should be able to go through and have kids at least know all their times tables, know basic addition, rough math, right? If someone says 433 plus 325, you can say 4 and 3 is 700, I don't know, around 770 something, So they don't feel bad about not knowing it exactly, but they get a sense of what's the rough math, getting close to it. Dividing something, percentages, but reading. And then to some degree getting a reading list for all children in New York so we're on the same page when it comes to, okay, has everybody read Animal Farm? I think that's a book well worth, I think that should be on a global reading list. Or if we had a global book club, probably Animal Farm should be at the top of that list. And then 1984. And then again, I'm brainwashed by the books that I've been given. There's probably plenty of great books out there. And again, there's these I'm just talking about are, by to some degree American writers. Animal Farm, 1984. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, To Kill a Mockingbird, Catcher in the Rye, but books that connect us to our humanity. And I'm sure there's other great books, but if we came up with like 5 to 10 books for children to read and said, let's all globally, maybe just one book, Animal Farm. Animal Farm, I think, to be the start of a global book club where, look, just learn how to read Animal Farm in your language. As I've said, I don't want these things to go over 29.59 because if they do, I think that's too much. Sure, could I go another half hour? Yeah. Could I talk for another hour? Yeah. Because I'd just be talking and letting it go wherever my thoughts take me. The goal being, how can these thoughts about being mayor of New York benefit anyone who may be running for office? But, as I said, I don't want it to go over a certain limit. I love New York City. And I want it to be the greatest city in the world, that shiny city on the hill. And I hope New York City loves me. And I don't want to be the mayor, really. I don't want to be a politician, but I hope some politician or some thought provoker takes these ideas and utilizes them to make this the greatest city in the world, New York City.